It is said once there lived a father by the name of Shantanu and his dulahin by the name of Gyanvanti. And it is said, this father, this mother, they had one son. And this one son that they had, he was everything to them. This one son that they had, he meant the entire world to them. They loved the son so much, and they had all their faith, all their trust put in this one child. And this child, my dear devotees, knowing that his mother and his father loves him, knowing that his mother and father depends on him, knowing that his mother and father sees him as their world, this child, he appreciated and acknowledged them every single day he had life in his body. This child was known by the name of Sant Kumar. It is said this child, my dear devotees, understanding that his parents needed him, understanding that he was the most important thing to his parents, there was never a day that went by where he didn't worship them, where he didn't honor them, where he didn't love them, where he didn't respect them. And do you know why this mother and father needed their child so much? This mother and father, my dear devotees, they were very old in age, and they were very frail, very tiny, very weak. But they needed their son so much because they were blind. They couldn't see. And being blind, my dear devotees, in order to live, in order to do anything, they needed their son to guide them and help them. And devotees, every single day they would depend on him. Every single moment, every single second of every day, they would count on him for something. If they needed food, this child would go and get it for them. If they needed water, this child would go and get it for them. If they needed to take their bath, this child would be there for them. If they needed anything, he would be there to serve them and take care of them. And you know something? There wasn't a single day that passed by where this child complained. There wasn't a single day that went by where this child felt like his parents were a burden to him. He enjoyed serving them. He enjoyed looking after them. He enjoyed being there for them. And I want to ask you something, parents. You are there for your children. You all told me a couple of minutes ago that you are the protectors of your children. You will protect your child at all cost, and you will be there for your children at all cost. I want to ask you something, but I do not want you to answer me. How many of you believe that your children will also be there to protect you one day? Don't answer, but think. How many of you believe that one day your children will be there to take care of you the way you took care of them? How many of you believe that your children will be there to teach you and help you and feed you and love you and support you just like you did for them? Children, I will tell you something. When you as children, you are young, your parents do everything for you. But there will come a point in time where mommy and daddy is going to get a bit older, where mommy and daddy, they're going to slow down a bit. And now you, much older, you're going to have to give them the love they gave you. You're going to have to help them the way they helped you. You're going to have to guide them the way they guided you. And can I tell you all something really, really harsh? There are many parents in the world today that love their children unconditionally. And there are many children who could care less about their parents. It's the harsh reality of life. Last night I told you something very important. I said life is an echo. What you send out into the universe is what you will receive from the universe. What you sow is what you will reap. And I have one prayer for all of you. Because I know all of you are constructive parents and you send out love into the universe, I pray that one day love comes back to you. That same love you give your children, I pray that one day your children return that love to you. But as the world is evolving and changing, it's diminishing, it's dying. And I'll break it down very simple for the little children to understand how sometimes the tables can turn. There was this mother, father and son. Father was very old and he was very forgetful. He would ask the same question multiple times. And one day, this son, his mother and father, they were sitting watching TV. And while they were sitting watching TV, the father saw a bird come very, very close to the window. And when the father saw that bird, he touched his son and he said, "Son, what's that?" So the son looked at the window and he saw it was a bird. He said, "Papa, it's a bird." Father said, "Okay." About 2 minutes after, the father noticed the bird still there, but he forgot. He asked the child already what it was. So he touched his son and he said, "Son, what's that?" Son looked again, said, "Papa, it's a bird." Father said, "Okay." 2 minutes after, he saw the bird again and he touched his son. "Son, what's that?" "Papa, it is a bird." "Okay." 2 minutes after, "Son, what's that?" "A bird." "Are you blind? Are you deaf? Can't you see?" And just as how I shouted and that child started to cry, that father shouted back at his son, not in anger, but in fear. "Baby, I am so sorry. You can please walk with the child, that's okay." That father, he became so frightened when that child started to shout at him and scream at him. And that mother got up and she said, "How can you call your father deaf? How can you call your father blind? That is the same father that loved you and took care of you. That is the same father that was there for you." And you know what that mother did? She got up and she went and she got a diary that she had and she dropped it on the child's lap. And she saw that when the child was 2 years old, he saw a bird and he asked his father about 11 times, "Papa, what was that?" And that father being asked that question 11 times, that father never shouted and never quarreled. He kept on saying, "Son, it's a bird." He kept on saying, "Son, it's a bird. Son, it's a bird." And now the father just asked it 4 times, and that child insulted and humiliated that father to the point that that father started to shout and cry and scream out because he got so frightened when his child shouted at him. And that is the harsh reality of life today, my dear devotees. You will give and you will give and you will give and you will give and you will give for your children. And when it is time for them to return that favor, they abandon you. When it is time for them to return that favor, they shout at you. When it is time for them to return that favor, they ignore you. They put you one side. They throw you away. And that is the harsh reality of life. Just the way how I shouted, that is how many children talk to their parents. Yes or no? Yes. You see it. You see it in the schools, how children talk to their teachers. You see it in families, how sons talk to their mothers. Society is dwindling and the love between parents and children, no matter how much sometimes a parent may try and try and try, sometimes the energies and the influences that a child may have in his or her life can transform their mind. And that son shouting at his father screamed and cried. He couldn't believe what was happening. The mother couldn't believe what was happening. And there are many parents in the world today, all they give their children is love, and all they get in return is insults. All they get in return is humiliation. Sant Kumar and his parents, they were not like how parents and children are sometimes. He had nothing but love. He had nothing but, as we say, purity in his heart for them. He never raised his voice at them. No matter how much time his mother and father would ask him for something, he never shouted like how I shouted there just now. He never screamed like how I raised my voice and screamed just now. All that child knew was to honor his parents. All that child knew was to love his parents. All that child knew was to give back the love that his parents gave to him. And one day, my dear devotees, his mother and father talking to him, they said, "Son, we have something we want. We have a desire that we want you to guide us." And Sant Kumar, listening to his parents, he said, "Tell me what it is you want, what it is you desire." And they said, "Son, we want to go on a pilgrimage. We want you to take us to various religious sites. We want to experience traveling and going on that pilgrimage to holy places." And Sant Kumar, at that point in time, he had 2 choices. He could have told them, "You are blind. I cannot take you to see anything." Or he could have been very respectful and followed their wish and desire. And devotees, think about it. 2 blind people wanting to go on pilgrimage. Some people in the world today may think that's a waste of time. Why am I carrying my parents who cannot see to religious places? Why am I carrying my parents who cannot see to holy places? Let me leave them home and let them live their lives home. But Sant Kumar, he was not like that. He said, if you wish to go into these places of pilgrimage, if you wish to go to these holy places, I will take you. And that child, my dear devotees, he started to think, what do I do? How do I carry my parents to these holy places? And he decided he doesn't want them to walk. He decides he doesn't want to put them under any sort of pressure, any sort of trouble. He decided he would take care of them in a way that they never thought he would have taken care of them before. And that child, my dear devotees, he made a little contraption, and he took his father and he put him in one end, and he took his mother and put her on one end, and holding that contraption, he lifted it above him and placed it on his shoulders. Father on one end, mother on the other end, their feet not touching the ground. And that child, that young man, having his parents on his shoulders, he began to walk. He began to walk to the places of pilgrimage where they wanted to go, where they wanted to visit, where they wanted to experience. That was the love that he had for his parents. That was the sacrifice he was willing to make for his parents. He understood that his parents are at a point in their life where they cannot take care of themselves. He understood that his parents are at a point in their life where they need him, and he refused to abandon them. He refused to turn his back on them. Children, I want to remind you again, don't turn your back on your parents, especially when they didn't turn their back on you. Don't be destructive to your constructive parents. Don't be destructive to the people who only wanted to see you shine, only wanted to see you glow, only wanted to see you radiate, only wanted to see you blossom. Never raise your voice at them, because you will regret it. You will regret it. In all the funerals I do, some point in time I hear a conversation where the child will tell me, Baba, the last thing I tell Mama was something hurtful. Baba, the last thing I told my father was something mean. We hear it many, many times. Don't be like that, my dear devotees, but value every moment you have with them. Just as how they took care of you, you take care of them. You take care of them. And Sant Kumar, having his mother and father on his shoulders and that little contraption that he made, he began to take them to places of pilgrimage. So this child, loving his parents so much, he takes them to different places of pilgrimage. And they arrived eventually to the outskirts of the city of Ayodhya. Arriving to the outskirts of the city of Ayodhya, it is said, Sant Kumar, he put his parents in a little hut for them to spend the night there. And while they were there talking and enjoying themselves, they looked at him and they said, Son, we are very thirsty. Do you think you can find any lake, any river where you can get some water for us to drink? And again, without hesitating, that child, he got up and he took a little vessel and he goes to search for a river. He goes to search for somewhere where he could have gotten water for his parents, leaving his parents in that hut all alone. It is said, while this child was searching for water, Raja Dashrath was in that forest hunting. And Raja Dashrath, my dear devotees, in that forest hunting, he was very much excited. He had no responsibilities at that time. He had no dulahin, he had no children. He was just hunting and enjoying himself. And it is said, Raja Dashrath, he had a very special power. It is said, once he hears a sound, if he takes his bow and arrow from just hearing that sound and he aims that arrow in direction of that sound, that arrow will pierce whatever made that sound. That arrow will go exactly to whoever or whatever made that sound. That was the power of Dashrath. And Dashrath, my dear devotees, having that urge to hunt, he was hunting many animals in that forest, going after all of the wild animals in that forest. And as the night time came, my dear devotees, and Sant Kumar was looking for water for his parents, Dashrath, he was camping on the banks of that river, hidden in the bushes, waiting for an animal to pass by, waiting to see what animal he can go and hunt. And it is said, as Sant Kumar was walking, he came across that river. And seeing that river, he thought to himself, you know what? I will take this vessel, I will fill water in this river, and I will go back quickly to my parents. And it is said, as Sant Kumar, he took that vessel, my dear devotees, and he placed it in that water. As the water entered into that vessel, it made a sound. And Dashrath, he heard that sound. Dashrath thought he alone was in this forest, and thinking that that sound was either a deer or an elephant, Dashrath, my dear devotees, very much irresponsible, very much careless, he takes up his arrow, and listening to the direction where that sound came from, he fired his arrow. And the moment he fired his arrow, and Sant Kumar filled his water, and he turned. The moment he turned, the arrow of Dashrath pierced him in his chest. And the moment the arrow of Dasrath pierced that child in his chest, he shouted out, he screamed out, and that vessel fell from his hand. Dasrath, my dear devotees, he was listening to hear the sound of the animal cry, but he didn't hear an animal cry. He heard the cry of a person. And Dasrath, hearing the cry of that person, it is said his heart sank immediately, because he realized he did something very careless. He did something very irresponsible. And Dasrath, following that song, he begins to go and see exactly what would have happened, what took place. And that child, my dear devotees, falling to the ground with that arrow pierced in his chest, tears started to flow from his eyes as he fell to that ground. And you know what was the first thing came into the mind of that child? Take a guess. Mother and father. Excellent, Sash. Mother and father. His parents came to his mind at that point in time. He didn't study the pain he was feeling. He studied the pain that his parents are going to be in. That arrow piercing him, he thought to himself, what is going to happen to Ma and Pa? He thought to himself, what wrong have I done to have this arrow pierce me? What wrong have I done to not be able to return to my parents to give them this water? He started to think, how are they going to get this water? How are they going to quench their thirst? He wasn't studying the pain he wasn't studying the blood. He was studying his parents. That was the love that this child had. That is the love that I pray that children in today's world have. I am positive, parents, tell me if I am wrong. When you walk, when you earn your little money, when you achieve great things, who is one of the persons that comes into your mind at all points in time when you succeed? When you earn your money, when it's Christmas time, when it's time for birthdays, Diwalis, who is the one person that comes into your mind more so than others? Your child? So nobody children comes into their mind around Christmas time? Huh? When you earn your money, when you have money to take care of your children, when you succeed, when you have food, when you buy pizza, when you buy things, who do you do it for? You more times than not, you do it for children. You do it for your loved ones. Parents, I'm afraid to say this. Parents, I think that many of you don't do anything for yourself. I think many of you sitting here tonight, you do things for your children. I think many of you, you will go the extra mile for your children. You will do whatever it takes for your children. You will put your children first and you will put yourself second. That is what I believe. Am I correct? Yes. Sant Kumar being pierced by that arrow, he was putting himself second and putting his parents first. Children, just as how your parents put you first, there will come a time where you need to put them first. There will come a time where you need to prioritize them. No matter how busy you are, don't forget them. Especially when you have constructive parents, no matter how busy they were, they never forgot you. Constructive parents will never forget you. Destructive parents might, but not constructive parents. So when you achieve what it is you want to achieve, don't forget them. Don't forget the foundation that they laid for you. Don't forget you are who you are today because of their guidance, even it was a little help they gave you. Appreciate them. And Sant Kumar, my dear devotees, knowing what his parents did for him, he now knew he had a duty to perform, and that duty was now cut. That duty was now sliced in half. And he started to worry about his parents. He started to panic about what would happen in their life. What would happen in their life. And it is said, Raja Dashrath, my dear devotees, following the sound of that cry, he comes exactly to where that child is lying on that ground. And seeing that child with that arrow pierced, it is said the heart of Dasrath sank. And Dasrath, he couldn't bear to see the mistake that he made. He couldn't bear to see the sloppy mistake that he made. He couldn't bear to see how irresponsible he was. He thought to himself, I should have looked before I fired this arrow. I should have ensured it was an animal before I fired this arrow. Now watch what I have done. It is at the moment Sant Kumar saw Dasrath, he said, what have I done to you? What have I done to you for you to take this arrow and pierce me? He said, Dasrath, today you not only just took my life, but you took the life of my mother and father as well. And the moment that child told Dasrath that, my dear devotees, Dasrath broke down at that point in time. He couldn't understand what that child was saying, what that child meant. That child looked at Dasrath and he said, I am the one who look after my parents. My parents are very old, very frail, very weak, and they are blind. They cannot see, they cannot take care of themselves, they cannot do anything for themselves. They depend on me. And you piercing me with this arrow, it means you pierce my mother as well. You pierce my father as well. You taking my life means you just took their life. That child, my dear devotees, having that arrow in him, starts to explain to Dasrath that all he came for was water. And Dasrath, my dear devotees, he doesn't know how to speak, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say at that point in time. So frightened and so scared by the words of this child. This child, he looks at him and he says, I want you to do me a favor. I want one thing from you. That child, he said, Dasrath, do me a favor. Take this vessel that I have this water in and fill it back up for me. And you see that pathway through the trees? I want you to follow that pathway and you will see the hut where my parents are staying for the night. We are just on pilgrimage. You will see that hut and give them this water and tell them what happened to me. Tell them what happened to me, but give them the water first. Give them that water and explain what it is you did to me. And Dasrath, take this arrow out of my chest. It is a Raja Dashrath, my dear devotees, looking at Sant Kumar, he said to him, if I take this arrow out of your chest, you will immediately die. You will immediately die. And he said, the pain that I am feeling, I will die no matter what. Take this arrowhead out of my chest. And Dasrath, my dear devotees, he became very scared because all sorts of things started to go through his mind. Just like you and I, when we make a mistake or when we get an accident, sometimes all sorts of things flow through our mind. This is what Dasrath was going through. Dasrath was scared that this child that he pierced was a Brahmin. Because Dasrath knew what he just did was very wrong, but he knew to make matters even worse, if that child was a Brahmin, a holy person, then his life would be gone. Dasrath's life would be over. And Sant Kumar, looking at the eyes of Dasrath, he said, if you are scared about who I am, I will tell you I am not from the Brahmin clan. My parents are not from the Brahmin clan. We are not. Therefore, the sin you will accomplish or the sin you will get from taking the life of a Brahmin, you won't get. You will just have to deal with the sin of what you did to me, the consequences of your actions. And Dasrath, my dear devotees, taking that arrow out of that child, it is said, in a matter of moments, the life of that child left his body. It is said, Dasrath, taking that vessel, he filled it back with water and he followed the pathway to the little hut that the parents of Sant Kumar were in. And Dasrath, my dear devotees, while walking in the direction of that hut, he begins to hear the voices of the parents talking. And you know what the parents were talking about? They were talking about their child. They were praising their child. And the father was looking at his wife and he said, look how fortunate we are that our son has done so much for us to bring us in pilgrimage. He's making so much effort and sacrifice for us. And they started to praise and commend the goodness and the nature that their child possessed in him. And Dasrath, as he's coming closer to the hut, hearing the way how they are talking about that child, Dasrath started to feel guilt like he had never felt before. It is said as Dasrath was taking footsteps closer to that hut, that father, he heard the footsteps of Dasrath, but he thought it was the footsteps of his son. And he said, son, is that you? And Dasrath couldn't answer. He said, son, did you get the water? Give it to your mother first. She's more thirsty right now than I'm. Once she quenches her thirst, I will drink after. Dasrath still couldn't answer. And that father realized that that person standing there was not his son. He couldn't see, but he felt it. He said, son, is that you? And Dasrath, my dear devotees, having to swallow all of that guilt that he was feeling, all of that pain that he was feeling, he had to put on a brave voice. And he said, no, I am not your son, but your son gave me this water to give you. Giving them that water, he said, I am Dasrath. And I came here based on the instructions of your son. That father, listening to the words of Dasrath, he said, and where is my son? Dasrath said, due to my irresponsible behavior, due to my careless behavior, Due to me not concentrating and being focused, I committed a crime. I committed a sin. He said, I have the ability to hear any sound in the area, and I have that ability to take my arrow and aim it in that direction without seeing, and my arrow will always pierce its target. Your son, when he came to the river to full water, the moment that vessel was dipped in that water, I thought it was an animal. And hearing the sound, I fired my arrow, and my arrow pierced him. And your son fell on the bank of that river with his life leaving his body. It is said when Dasrat broke that news to that mother and father, tears started to flow from their eyes. They couldn't believe what it is they were hearing, that their one piece of joy that they had, the one happiness they had in their life, was just taken away from them. Sant Kumar was everything to his mother and father, just as how children will be everything to you. And put yourself in the shoes of that mother and father. Imagine you get the news that something has happened to your child in school. Imagine you get the news that something has happened to your son or daughter in work. Something has happened to your son or daughter while on the road. How you would feel, the panic you would feel, the coldness you will feel, the fright you will feel. That is what these parents were feeling. Their entire body felt very numb. And Shantanu, he looked at Dasrat and he said, take us to where the body of my child is lying. And Dasrat, my dear devotee, is guiding them back to that river. He takes their hands and he places their hands on the body of their son. And Shantanu, my dear devotees, feeling the body of his son, he puts his hand on the face of that child and he feels the eyes of that child closed. It is said that father, with tears in his eyes, he begins to speak to his son like if his son was alive. He said, son, why are you lying down? He said, son, why are your eyes closed? Son, why are you not talking to me? And that father fully well know that that child has no life in his body. He's talking to that child like if he's having a conversation for the last time. He said, son, you always look after me. Why aren't you looking at me right now? Why aren't you talking to me right now? He said, son, your mother is here. Whenever you see your mother, you hug her, you bow to her. Why aren't you bowing? Why aren't you hugging her, son? Why aren't you moving? Why aren't you breathing? And that father, my dear devotees, he started to break down more and more and more. Dasrat, seeing the condition of that father, Dashrat, my dear devotees, he couldn't hold those tears back. The guilt that he was feeling for his wrong actions. It is said that father, my dear devotees, feeling and touching the body of that child, he said, son, who is going to talk to us now? Who is going to get food for us? Who is going to take care of us like the way you have taken care of us? Son, every night you sit and you read from the Vedas and the Puranas and the scriptures. Who is going to do that now for us? And that father, he looked at Dasrat and he said, Dasrat, today you have not only taken my son from me, but you have taken my wife and I from the world. Today you haven't only pierced and destroyed the life of my child, but you have destroyed the life of my Dulahin and myself for your careless actions. It is said that father, continuing to touch the body of that child, he said, son, this criminal, referring to Dasrat as a criminal, will pay for what he has done. Will pay for his sinful action, for his irresponsible action. My dear devotees, Dasrat, knowing fully well he was guilty, he couldn't get upset for the harsh words of that father. He knew he had to take accountability and he knew that he would have to pay a price. It is said at that point in time, that father, that mother, taking water from that river, they began to offer water in the name of that son. It is said, that child, my dear devotees, he was so divine, he was so blessed, that the moment his life left his body, his soul didn't linger onto this earth, but it is said his soul went into the heavenly region immediately. So good was this child, and seeing the pain and sadness that his parents are in, he looked at Indradev and had one wish, for him to serve his parents again, for his parents to come and join with him so that they don't have to suffer in the world without him. It is said that mother and father offering water in the name of their child. Listen to what that father does. Listen to what that mother does. Listen to the words they're about to tell Dasrat. And Dasrat, my dear devotees, as the years went on, when he was blessed with his children, Ram, Bharat, Lakshman and Satrugna, we all knew, and we all know the story from there. There came a point in his time where Ram was the eyeball of Dasrat's life, just as Sant Kumar was for his mother and father. Ram was his entire world, and he wanted Ram to be the king of Ayodhya. And we all know, in his happiest moment, in the moment where he was about to crown Ram as the king, sadness hit his life because he was told that Ram must be exiled into the forest for 14 years. And when Dasrat got that news, that curse that he got came back into his mind. He realized at that point in time it was because he took the life of Sant Kumar and separated him from his parents, and that curse that Shantanu gave him, this is why he has to suffer. He understood at that point in time, the moment Ram leaves his life and Ram is exiled into that forest, his life will be gone. And we all know the moment Sri Ram was exiled into that forest, in no time at all, Dasrat, unable to bear that grief, in order to bear that sadness and that pain, his life left his body. He faced the similar fate as Shantanu and Gyanvanti, being separated from the one son they loved the most.